Hi, I'm Olivia. Mila's here on my lap. You can see like one of her ears, I think. Um, I'm This is my recommendations channel. I am still doing books. I've said in a couple past videos, I've got my computer to do other things like put in pictures of places I've been and do movies and TV shows and things like that. The speakers I have don't seem to be working. I need to figure out why they're not working because otherwise I can't do anything. I can't even put subtitles in my current videos because I can't hear what I'm saying. So there's that. I also want to get back into sewing. I've got the last thing I ever made. I've got a green and white dress. You'll eventually see it um, over here on the wall. It's close to 20 years ago. I've got my sewing machine here. I'm hoping that as soon as I finish this, I'm going to be able to get myself squared away and film myself threading my sewing machine for the first time since 2007, 2008, something around there. So, books. Today's book is The Fellowship of Puzzlemakers by Samuel Burr. Such a good book. Oh my gosh. Basically, the the criterion, main criterion for me covering a book, I'll cover a lot of these, but not all of them, because basically what it amounts to is if I open the book and can't and get just like sucked in and have trouble like emerging, that's a book I'm going to talk about. Um, if you look, I think you can see it up there in the upper. I don't know. You're seeing the same thing I am. I think. No, you're seeing it backwards. So I think it's your upper left-hand corner. There's a um, book called "There Goes the Neighborhood" by Jade Adia. Great book. I loved it. I was not sucked in on it the last time I tried it. So we're gonna just not do that one this time. I'll come back to it later. A couple books down is The Thief of Always. Pretty sure that one's going to be coming up pretty soon. Great book. I've had it. It's also a first printing. My mom bought it for me for Christmas when it first came out. It was such a good book. So that may be coming up soonish. We'll see how that goes. So, The Fellowship of Puzzle Makers has this really nifty story structure. Okay, basically, it tells a story that spans 38 years as two parallel stories that kind of are intertwined and alternating back and forth. There are also these puzzles throughout, and I'm hopelessly terrible at a lot of these sort of things. I've traditionally been pretty good at crosswords, which is one of the central conceits of the book, as we'll see. But like some of them, there's a maze. I'm terrible at mazes. I'm no good at all at doing mazes. So, um, she gives the answer. She, because the character that set all this up is female. Burr gives us the answers to the book in the book for that one. So we start out at a point that's both the middle and the beginning of our story. On the day in 1991 when Pippa Allsbrook, the president and founder of the Fellowship of Puzzlemakers, finds a baby boy in a hat box, the hat with the letters HH on it, the hat box, on the doorstep of the Fellowship's headquarters. The Fellowship's headquarters at this point are a kind of commune. Some members of the Fellowship have chosen to live in a mansion in Bedfordshire and pool some of their finances to support each other's creative endeavors. They form the majority of characters in this book. We then go forward to 2016 to the day before Pippa Allsbrook's funeral. The baby, named Clayton Stumper, they gave him the surname Stumper, which means a question or puzzle that is too difficult to figure out, is now 25 and he's saying goodbye to the only mother he's ever known, now that Pip has passed away. Clayton does not believe that he will ever know where he came from or who he truly is, and he is so mistaken on that. That's the whole plot of this book, basically. The next chapter moves us to the day in 1979 when Pippa, who writes crossword puzzles professionally, first gathers people who are involved in puzzling fields and also a famed cryptologist with the plan to form a puzzle group. We go back to 2016 next to the day of Pippa's wake. After that, we return to the actual first meeting of the fellowship, and then to the rest of the wake. At the wake, a former resident of their home, Nancy Stone, arrives, gives her condolences, and then disappears. Now, the rest of the wake, a lot of the wake was set up by Pippa because she knew this was coming, and she had a lot of they had like different kinds of puzzles and games and stuff set up in her memory. Um, After Pippa's funeral, the members of the fellowship clean out Pippa's bedroom, and Clayton finds the hat box that he was found in. Inside the box is a letter from Pippa and a crossword puzzle. The very puzzle I mentioned before, that Pippa said she has been working on for her whole life, and it contains everything that is needed for a happy, fulfilling life. Pippa sends Clayton on a search for his biological parents and tells him to bring his passport. Now, it's clear that Pippa knows Clayton's parentage, so why doesn't she just tell him? Well, you see, Clayton's whole life has been the fellowship, to the point where he graduated from a vocational program with distinction in hospitality and catering, and rather than going out and making a life for himself, he came back to the fellowship and used these skills to help them. Both Pippa and her partner/best friend Earl felt that Clayton needed to get out and experience life, so Pippa sends him on a quest. After another visit to the past, to another meeting of the fellowship, we returned to Clayton's search for answers. Pippa said that a line of the letter contains a clue, and Clayton realizes the line is the vertical line that's formed by the first letter of each paragraph, which leads him to our Danielle Steele novel collection. After another trip to the 1980s, we return to Clayton's search. He finds, and breaks in his frustration, a box that Pippa had made decades before, and he finds a key with the letter H on it. There are a lot of H's in this book. One of the characters is named Hector Haywood, and the Rolodex card with Nancy Stone's address. In the flashback chapters, the fellowship grows. They start selling puzzles, including books of puzzles, and in the case of Nancy, trivia books, and start saving money in a common fund to help fund the work of other members. Eventually, one of the most financially successful is the aforementioned Hector Haywood, who makes jigsaw puzzles. In fact, he ends up needing to take an apprentice to help him keep up with the demand for puzzles. Back in 2016, Clayton heads to London to meet Nancy, and she figures out the key is for one of the safe deposit boxes at Harrods department store. Now, we've already seen that at this point, I think we've already seen it because we've seen that there's a painting of Pippa's mother inside there. This will be kind of, inside the box, Clayton finds a painting, but this one is not the one of Pippa's mother. It's of a young boy who looks a lot like Clayton, and the address of a former resident of the house, Jaunty and Whistle. At some point in the flashback part of the story, Pippa asks for the permission of the fellowship to buy her old family home in Bedfordshire to use as a headquarters for the fellowship. Well, you've seen the fellowship headquarters in Bedfordshire, so this suggestion passes unanimously, and almost everything the fellowship does has to be unanimous. There's one exception that comes later, and we'll get there. When they buy the house, Pippa had been saving up to do this for years. They somehow inherit their maid and cook, Angel, whose housekeeping skills leave something to be desired, but who's an amazing cook and has been doing. The house had been a hotel, and she'd been doing all the catering for the hotel for years and years. So we also see Pippa's first attempt at parenthood, when Earl suggests she consider foster parenting. Nearly everyone is in favor of this except for one person who leaves an anonymous note dissenting. It all comes to nothing, however, because the fellowship is having money problems. Pippa's been deferring maintenance on the house for years, I know that feeling, while selling her personal items for minor upkeep, and the day the social worker comes over, the hot roof collapses. One of the slogans of the fellowship is, "To go further, go together." This was the answer to the box that Clayton broke, by the way. And once she opens up about their financial problems, they come up with the idea of having a spring fair, spelled Fayre, as a fundraiser. The fair is successful beyond their dreams, and they can fix the house. Clayton gets one final clue to his parentage from Jaunty, which is a jigsaw puzzle with a piece missing. The centerpiece of the jigsaw puzzle is missing. And what he finds when he puts together the puzzle is the reason that Pippa told him to bring his passport. I love how Burr builds the suspense through the contrast between 2016 and the flashbacks. Jaunty is central to these. I'm going to spoil a tiny bit of this because I like this construction. In the present, Clayton goes to Nancy's home, where he meets Neil, the very attractive caregiver for Nancy's ailing husband. But we don't know who Nancy's husband is. There's just husband. We then have a flashback to Nancy's love for Jaunty from Valentine's Day of 1991. Clayton meets Nancy right after this flashback, and then we have the rest of Valentine's Day 1991 when Jaunty breaks Nancy's heart, thus removing Jaunty from the running for Nancy's husband. But is he Clayton's father? When I wrote this the first time, I realized I skipped a character. I'm like, oh, poot, how am I going to put this back in? So once Clayton figures out his origins, he returns to the Fellowship, but this time he's more fully there and more connected to the world beyond the Fellowship. He made a new friend in London other than Neil, who becomes more of a lover than a significant other than a friend. But he becomes friends with an elderly lady named Scylla Millington, who was living a lonely widow's life before Clayton found her. Neil is still in his life, only as a boyfriend. Now, for the spoilers. I notice how we skipped right over who Clayton's parents are. We're just gonna, if you don't want to find out who Clayton's parents are, if you want to read it for yourself and do the math yourself, feel free to stop here. You know the drill. If you have any books to recommend, leave them in the comments. I'll see you in the next one. Anybody who's still here, let's finish. Who were Clayton's parents? I struggled with how to include the characters above without spoiling too much. His mother wasn't Nancy Stone, even though Clayton started out pretty sure she was. But rather, it was Angel, the housekeeper and cook. I didn't want to make it too obvious in the explanation of the book, but you can see it in Clayton's vocational training. Angel was an amazing cook, and what did Clayton take distinction in? Catering. The painting of the boy who looks like him is his much older half-brother on their father's side, Lucas. You see, Clayton's biological father is Hector Haywood, and his apprentice, the one who talked about, the one he took on to help shoulder some of the burden, was Angel. You see, they started out as master and student and ended up for a time as lovers, and Clayton was the result. Ultimately, Angel decided she needed to she needed to leave. She needed to move on with her life and move to the continent. This is the reference to the passport. The puzzle that Jaunty gave Clayton was of Amsterdam. And it's a pink house, but the actual center of the house itself was missing. So he goes to Amsterdam, goes up to the wrong pink house and gets in trouble. Finally, somebody stops him and is like, "You've been wandering around lost for a while, English dude. Where are you trying to get?" And he was like, "It's a pink house." And they're like, "Oh, I know the pink house. The pink house is now a hotel known as the Art House. And it is run by none other than Angel. And she gives him the final piece of the puzzle that makes it match, as I recall. Maybe I should reread. Anyway, so that's how he finds his biological mother. And Angel gives him a letter from his biological father, who's Hector. And Hector says, if you want a relationship, we can have a relationship. He tells Clayton that he stayed just a family friend, another member of the Fellowship for Clayton's whole life, because Pippa and Earl were his parents. Hector, would have loved to have been more present in his child's life as dad, but he didn't want to step on the toes of the only parents that Clayton knew. And, that's kind of, that's kind of cool and generous, really. I loved it. So, of course, neither Angel nor Hector were really into the puzzling aspects of the Fellowship. They were artists. They were, they didn't write books of trivia or brain teasers, and they didn't build Rubik's Cubes or snake puzzles, or there's some kind of game that they make that uses glass balls, and he didn't make any of those things. They basically just made paintings that were turned into puzzles. So, it says, I wonder if, we will never know probably, because, Clayton's story's done. Clayton's moving on with life, but the story of the book is done, and we'll probably never know. But I wonder if Clayton will turn out to have some kind of artistic talent, since both of his biological parents did. But that's why Clayton, I think that's probably why Clayton never really did any puzzly things, and why Clayton had to break the box. I'm kind of sad that he ended up with somebody who's at home health aide, not somebody who could fix that box. But that's me. Um, so I also mentioned that I don't know when Pippa realized who Clayton's father was, but I think she kind of always knew who Clayton's mother was because of the hat box. You see, the hat box leads to two people. Nancy's father owned the haberdashery that had those hat boxes. So Pippa originally was like, but but the only person running for Clayton's father in that case would have been Jonty. Jonty is gay. Jonty does not love Nancy the way she wanted him to. So, um, he loved her the best he could, and they attempted a little hanky panky, and apparently it didn't work out very well. So Nancy could not have been pregnant when she left, which was just a few months before Clayton shows up. However, when Angel left for Europe, you know what she took? A hat box. All she took. She just, anything she couldn't fit in a hat box, she left behind. And so, of course, the hat box is only connected to those two women, and she knows it's not Nancy. So it's got to be Angel, right? So I think she always knew that it was Angel, but I'm not entirely 100% sure. I'm hoping somebody out there has read it and is like, oh, but she knew when this happened or that happened. I think that she saw the painting. I think it may have been the painting. I think she may have seen the painting of Lucas and realized that Lucas looked an awful lot like Clayton and done the math then. But it doesn't, I don't think it actually says in so many words. I don't think. So, great book. It's another one of those that I open up and I just immediately disappear into, and it's just, time passes and I look up and I'm like, ooh, how long has that been? That's been a long time. So, great book. Love it. Fellowship of Puzzlemakers. Samuel Burr. Check it out. The drill. Leave comments recommending books. I mean, I've read, my Goodreads account now has 500 books in it that I've read, and 400 that I haven't, many of which are things I have read, but I want to read again because I've told this story in other videos. I never kept, okay. In high school, we had, my freshman and sophomore years, we had to have book reports. So I had some kind of record of those 2 years of my reading, but basically nothing else. And so I've basically been, every time I remember a book that I've read, I put it on my to be read list on Goodreads. So a lot of that 400 books are things I have read. I just haven't read, I just don't know when I read them. So by putting them on my to be read, when I do read them, I will have a date that I read them, even though it's the second or third or 27th time I've read it. So, 900 books on my Goodreads, but a lot of them are things that I read years ago. They're things I read in high school. They're things I read in college. They're things I read in grade school. They're things I read when I was a young married woman in the 90s. So I don't know if I flagged the Wheel of Time books. And I want to do the Wheel of Time books, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. Oh, God. Pray for me. So, I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.